Billionaire never allowed kids in his house, and that was the one rule Lillian Clark was never supposed to break. But on that morning, with nowhere else to take her twin daughters, she hid them behind a locked door inside his home and prayed God would keep them quiet. Hours later, soft laughter slipped out from the forbidden room, and the sound cut through her like a knife. Heavy footsteps moved closer. The door handle turned. Lillian's legs gave way as fear crushed her chest, because in that moment she was sure she had ruined her life. She did not know that the man about to open that door was about to face a pain he had buried for years, or that what he would do next would change all of their lives forever. Lillian woke up at 4:45 each morning in a small apartment in Queens that barely fit her and her daughters. Ava and Bella slept on a narrow bed pushed against the wall, their legs tangled together like they had been born holding hands. Lillian would stand there for a moment, watching them breathe, memorizing their faces before the day pulled her away. She kissed their foreheads softly, grabbed her worn coat, and stepped out into the dark city. By 7 o'clock, she was inside Charles Turner's house. The place was large, quiet, and still, like a space no one truly lived in. The floors were clean enough to reflect light. The walls were bare. No photos, no signs of family, no warmth. It felt less like a home and more like a shell. Charles Turner liked it that way. Charles Turner was a billionaire who built his fortune in technology. He was 46 years old, tall, quiet, and distant. He spoke little and expected even less noise. 2 years earlier, when Lillian first applied for the job, he told her one thing very clearly: no children, ever. His voice was calm, but there was no room for discussion. Lillian agreed without hesitation. She needed the money. The pay was more than she had ever earned before, and it was the only thing keeping her daughters safe and fed. That system worked until November 27th. That morning, Lillian's phone rang while she was tying her shoes. The neighbor, who watched Ava and Bella, was sick and could not move from her bed. There was no backup plan, no family nearby, no savings to miss work. Lillian stood in her kitchen staring at her daughters eating cereal in matching pajamas. Today was their birthday. They were 4 years old. She knew the risk, she knew the rule, but she also knew what would happen if she lost this job. Fear pushed her forward. Love made the choice for her. She told the girls they were going on a secret adventure. They smiled and whispered like it was a game. On the train into Manhattan, Lillian held them close and prayed they would forgive her one day if things went wrong. Inside Charles Turner's building, she used the service elevator. Her hands shook as she unlocked the guest bedroom at the far end of the house, a room Charles never used. She set out snacks, coloring books, tablets with headphones, and stuffed animals. She knelt in front of them and looked them in the eyes. "You must stay quiet," she said. "Like hide and seek." They nodded, serious and trusting. Lillian locked the door from the outside and walked away with tears burning behind her eyes. For hours, everything was silent. She cleaned, scrubbed, and worked through the fear, telling herself she could make it to the end of the day. Then, just after 2 in the afternoon, she heard footsteps that did not belong. Charles Turner had come home early. Her breath caught as she heard him move down the hall toward the guest wing. She dropped the cloth in her hand and followed, her legs weak. The door handle turned. Then she heard it. Laughter. Small voices. Her daughters. Lillian ran. When she reached the doorway, Charles Turner stood frozen, staring at 2 small girls in bright dresses sitting on the floor. Crayons were scattered everywhere. Ava looked up first and smiled. "Hi," she said. "It's our birthday." Bella held up 4 fingers. Lillian could not speak. Her body felt numb. She waited for anger. She waited for shouting. Instead, Charles's face lost all color. His knees bent, and he lowered himself to the floor. 4, he whispered. Tears ran down his face as he touched Bella's hair with shaking fingers. That moment broke something open. Charles ordered a birthday cake. He sang badly. The house filled with sound for the first time in years. Lillian watched from the doorway, confused, scared, and full of hope she did not trust. The next morning, she returned to work, expecting silence again. Instead, Charles told her she could bring the girls any time she needed. Over the next weeks, the girls came often. Charles played with them, read to them, and smiled more each day. Lillian began to see him differently. But fear had already taken root. When her sister visited and warned her about rich men and power, Lillian listened. She started noticing things. Questions about school, papers about guardianship, a child psychologist's card. Her fear grew. She pulled away. She quit without explanation. Charles followed her, confused and hurt. She accused him of planning to take her daughters. He denied it, swore he loved them, swore he loved her. She did not believe him. Then she found the nursery. Pink walls, 2 cribs, their names on the wall. Lillian ran. She took the girls and disappeared. That night, Charles returned home with gifts and found only silence and a note. Don't try to find us. And somewhere in New York, a man who had lost everything once before fell to his knees again, while a mother held her daughters and wondered if fear had just destroyed the only good thing they had ever known. Lillian Clark did not sleep that first night after she ran. She lay on the narrow motel bed with Ava on one side and Bella on the other, her arms wrapped around them like a shield. The room smelled old and damp. A flickering light buzzed above the door, and every small sound made her body tighten. Her girls whispered questions she could not answer. Where is Mr. Charles? Why did we leave? When are we going home? Lillian swallowed her tears and told them everything would be okay, even though she did not believe it herself. By morning, fear had turned into survival. Lillian found work cleaning offices for low pay. She counted every dollar, skipping meals so the girls could eat. Days passed slowly. Ava stopped singing. Bella stopped asking questions. They sat close to Lillian, quiet and tired, their eyes always searching the door. At night, Lillian cried into the pillow so they would not hear her. She told herself she had done the right thing. She had protected them. That was what a mother was supposed to do. Back in New York, Charles Turner stood alone in his house. The silence was worse than before. He walked from room to room, calling their names, hoping they would answer. On the counter lay the note. 4 words that burned into him. He called Lillian's phone again and again. It rang once, then went dead. He drove to Queens, then to places he thought she might go. No one had answers. Days passed. He did not sleep. He did not eat. The house felt like a grave. Charles hired help to search for her, but nothing came back. Every night he sat on the floor of the nursery he had opened after 4 years. He touched the cribs, the blankets, the toys. He whispered apologies to names that filled the room with memory. Ava, Bella, the same names, the same birthday. November 27th. He wondered how fate could be so cruel and so kind at the same time. Weeks passed before he found her. The car pulled up beside the sidewalk in Philadelphia. Lillian froze when she saw him step out. He looked older, thinner, like a man who had been hollowed out. Her first instinct was to run, but something in his eyes stopped her. It was not anger. It was pain. Please, he said quietly. 5 minutes. They sat in a small coffee shop. Lillian folded her arms tight across her chest. She told him to speak. Charles took a deep breath and began. 4 years ago, he had a wife named Emily. They were happy. She became pregnant with twins. They planned everything together. They painted a nursery. They chose names, Ava and Bella. Their due date was November 27th. That morning, They went to the hospital full of hope. By night, Emily was gone. The twins were gone. Charles stopped talking. His hands shook as he spoke. He told her how he locked the nursery and banned children because it hurt too much to see what he lost. When he met Lillian's daughters, when they said their names, when they said their birthday, something inside him broke open. He cried, because the pain he buried came back all at once. The nursery was not a plan to steal. It was a place he could finally enter again. A place he wanted to fill with life, with her, with the family he dreamed of building. Lillian covered her mouth as tears ran down her face. The truth hit her slowly, like a weight lifting. Fear had blinded her. She had run without listening. Charles told her he never wanted to take her children. He only wanted to love them, and her, if she would let him. Silence sat between them. Then Lillian reached across the table and took his hand. "I was scared," she whispered. "I know," he said. "So was I." That evening, Lillian brought Charles to the motel. Ava and Bella ran into his arms, crying and laughing at the same time. He held them like they might disappear. Lillian watched, her heart breaking and healing at once. They returned to New York days later. The house felt different. It was still large, still quiet at times, but it no longer felt empty. Lillian kept working. She needed to stand on her own. Charles respected that. They moved carefully, learning to trust again. One night, he showed her the nursery and told her stories about Emily. Lillian listened and cried. She understood now. The room was not a threat. It was a place of grief turned into hope. Outside, the city lights glowed. Inside, a family began to form, fragile and unsure, but real. Lillian still feared the future. Charles still carried loss. But for the first time, they faced it together, holding on, choosing to stay, even when staying was the hardest thing of all. The days after they returned to New York moved slowly, like everyone was afraid to breathe too hard and break what had just been repaired. Lillian woke each morning expecting fear to rush back into her chest, but instead she felt something softer. Not peace yet, but the space where peace could grow. Ava and Bella slept through the night again. They laughed more. They stopped asking if they would run away again. Charles changed too. He no longer hid behind silence. He came home earlier. He sat on the floor with the girls and let them climb over him. He listened when Lillian spoke, not like a boss listening to a worker, but like a man who truly cared. The house slowly filled with sound. Not loud, not wild, just real. Lillian kept working by choice. She wanted to earn. She wanted her daughters to see strength. Charles never argued. He respected her pride, even when it scared him that she carried so much alone. At night, when the girls were asleep, they talked. About the past, about fear, about what love meant when both people came in broken. One evening, as winter melted into spring, Charles took Lillian's hand and asked her to walk with him through the house. They stopped in the nursery. The room no longer felt heavy. It felt quiet in a good way. Charles told her he wanted a future, not to erase pain, not to replace anyone, but to build something honest. He told her he loved her, not because she saved him, but because she stood strong even when fear tried to crush her. Lillian cried as she answered him. She told him she loved him too, but love scared her, trust scared her, losing scared her more than anything. Charles held her and promised only one thing, that he would never use his power to harm her, and that he would never walk away without telling the truth. She did not ask for more. That promise was enough. Months passed. The girls started school. Lillian found better work closer to home. The house changed with them. Photos appeared on the walls. Drawings stuck to the fridge. Shoes left by the door. The place no longer felt like a space someone survived in. It felt like a place people lived. On a warm morning near Central Park, Lillian stood in front of a mirror holding a small bouquet of wild flowers. Her dress was simple and white. No gold, no show. Just clean and honest, like the life she wanted. Her sister stood behind her, fixing her hair with shaking hands. "I was wrong," her sister whispered. "I was afraid for you." "I know," Lillian said. "You wanted to protect us." Outside, Charles waited. He did not wear a tie. His hands shook as he watched Lillian walk toward him with Ava and Bella beside her. The girls wore white dresses with red bows. They smiled like the day was made only for them. The ceremony was small. Few people, honest words. When Charles said "I do," his voice broke. When Lillian answered, she meant it with everything she had. They promised truth, patience, and staying, even when staying hurt. The celebration was back at the house. Music played softly. The girls danced until they fell onto the couch, laughing. As the evening ended, Bella climbed into Charles's lap. She looked up at him, her voice gentle and unsure. "Daddy, can we have cake tomorrow too?" Time stopped. Charles could not breathe. Ava joined them, nodding fast. "Please, Daddy." Tears fell down Charles's face as he pulled them close. He looked at Lillian, asking without words. She nodded through her own tears. "Yes," he whispered. "Any time you want." Later that night, when the house grew quiet, Lillian stood by the window with Charles. The city lights stretched below them. "Every year I feared this day," Charles said. "Now it is the day I am most thankful for." Lillian rested her head against him. She thought of how close fear had come to stealing everything, how silence had almost won, how love, slow and painful, had changed their lives. Family, she realized, was not blood alone. It was choice. It was truth. It was staying when leaving felt safer. In the other room, Ava and Bella slept, safe and loved. The nursery door stood open, filled with light instead of loss. And for the first time in a very long time, Lillian Clark was not afraid of tomorrow. Dear viewers, this story is not just about a billionaire, a maid, or twin girls. It is about fear, love, and the courage it takes to trust again. It is about how pain can close a heart for years, and how love can open it in one unexpected moment. Lillian was not weak for being afraid. She was a mother protecting her children. Charles was not cruel for setting rules. He was a man hiding from a loss that almost destroyed him. And when their worlds collided, fear almost stole their happiness, but truth brought them back together. This story reminds us that money cannot heal grief, power cannot replace love, and silence can destroy what honesty could save. Sometimes the hardest thing is not leaving, but staying, listening, and believing that not everyone who comes into your life is there to hurt you. Sometimes, God does not remove the pain. Instead, He sends people who help you live with it and slowly turn it into something beautiful. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what this story taught you about fear, love, or family. If you want more deep, emotional stories like this, comment "more stories," and you will be the first to receive the next one. Now, let me ask you. 1. Do you think Lillian was right to run when she found the nursery? Or should she have stayed and asked the truth first? 2. If you were Charles, would you have opened your heart again after such a deep loss? 3. What does family mean to you? Blood, love, or the people who choose to stay? We will be waiting to read your thoughts, because your voice matters here.